Welcome to the lesson on other invoicing options. I'm currently in the Billing Center and I'm going to click the default button on the toolbar to talk about the many different invoicing options available. Now, when you come into the defaults from any center screen, the tab that's related to that actual center screen comes open. But all of the different defaults for the whole system are available to you in all these different tabs here. We're going to be working just in the invoicing one. Now keep in mind that anytime you set defaults in the Cobra defaults, it's only for the station and the user who is logged in on this station. So if you want to use some of these options on other stations, you have to go to those stations and set them the same way. I generally recommend that one or two people be working in these as you begin learning the system. Once the defaults are set, go in and set them for everybody. But the invoicing options, I'm going to go through these kind of quickly and talk about what the majority of them are. There is a complete list of them in the help system under System Defaults, Invoicing. If you want a more clear picture of what they all do or a refresher on how to use some of these defaults. I'm going to work in the General tab first and talk about some of these defaults. The next invoice number is a control that Cobra uses. Every time you do an invoice, it's updating that number. So if you ever needed to recreate an invoice, you deleted one accidentally and you need to recreate it, you can write this number down, reset this to the invoice number that you want to use to recreate, and then reset this back later on if you wanted to. Number of lines in the body of the invoice. You really shouldn't have to change this, but some people who are using non-laser printers like inkjets or deskjets, if Cobra is printing too many lines on the body of the invoice, you can tell it how many lines to put in there. Generally 36 is a good number to have in there. You might want to tweak that if too many lines are printing in the body of the invoice. The freeform invoice font, when you get the system, this defaults to Arial. I generally tell you to set this to Courier New because you can do a lot of columnizing and lining up, indenting, that kind of thing, and Courier New prints things out very nicely, lining things up. One-line tax format. Cobra automatically prints sales tax for the material portion of the invoice and the labor portion of the invoice, also direct. But if you don't want it to do that, you just want one line of tax on your invoice, you can click this on. If this user is always going to have his jobs closed at the time that he or she does the invoice, you can click this on. But keep in mind, if you have some users that do T&M, you might want this on. If you have some users that just do progress billings, you might want this off and have them physically turn it on at the time of invoicing. This feature is for charging discounts on invoices. That's a whole different area I'm not going to get into right now. Do not update job items. This is for freeform invoices only, and what it means is that if you don't want Cobra to automatically tag the job items with the invoice that you're currently creating, then you can turn that on. Otherwise, if this is turned off, then Cobra will automatically tag uninvoiced job items to the invoice that you're creating. This is no longer valid, so I'll skip on that. Print defaults. This is kind of cool. You have the option with Cobra to have all of your forms printed on plain paper. So what I've done is exactly that here. I've set this up for plain paper printing. So I've done that by clicking this on here. But I also want my customer logo to print on my invoices. Now that can be on either the forms or the paper invoices. Okay, so otherwise, if you want Cobra to print your name on the invoice because you don't have a logo, I would use this instead. print company phone and fax. That depends on how extensive your logo is. If it includes that information, maybe you want that on there or not. And then there are other options as well. This is a very popular one here. Print invoice amount on last page only. That is, if you have a multiple page invoice, then Cobra will just print how much is owed to you on the last page of the invoice. So it's very popular. This is also a nice feature, the print order, because on detail invoices we print everything in the order of printing material first, labor next, and direct last. That's the default. But if you'd like to switch it around, you can switch the order in which your detail invoices print by selecting the order from this drop-down. Now let's talk about your company message. You can have a company message in here and it can be changed periodically. So that can be stored in there. And keep in mind that you don't have to press save in between all of these tabs. You can just press save once we're done with all these changes. The print method, this is kind of nice too, because a lot of our customers told us to write this in there. When you save an invoice, the default, if you don't change anything, is to have Cobra ask you what to do. So as you've seen me with my invoicing, every time I save an invoice it says, do you want to print now, yes or no, because it's asking me what I want to do. Otherwise you can say always put it in batch, or always just print it automatically. That's kind of cool. And then the logo, this is an extremely popular option. You can store bitmaps, JPEG files, GIF files, just about any kind of picture file can be saved in here. Now what I recommend, especially if you're on a network, is to store your logo file in your Cobra directory so that everybody has access to it. Otherwise, if it remains just on your C drive, no one else will have access to that logo file. Okay, so I always suggest put your logo file in your Cobra directory and store that path right here. Now you can go in and browse like you know in the normal Windows browsing to actually have it create the path for you, but share that bitmap logo. This is the normal size of the logo. You might have to tweak your logo to get it into a normal size so that it fits intelligently onto your forms. But this same logo can be used throughout the whole system. So if you wanted to use it on work orders, just say print your company logo. Statements, print company logo. You can print statements or print your logo on any of these forms. So go into some of these other defaults too if you want to, and click on your logo on your plain paper option right now if you want to. Excellent. Just don't forget to press save or click save to save your defaults. Very good. This ends the lesson on other invoicing options.